Hello, testing 1 2 3. Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm currently streaming on YouTube right now, and I'm also streaming on TikTok. So for today, I'm gonna go ahead and do a brief overview of what I was working on sometime yesterday. And basically, as you can see here, this is our Mer-May sketch settings. So now I'm gonna do the quick breakdown using the old video that I used to. Using the old video that I did, just so that you guys can see the overall breakdown process on how I drew this step by step. Alright, give me just one moment to pull up the video. Here we go. And so now I'm just going to expand it a little bit. And then in just a moment, I'll play some music and we can get started. So now, just want to make sure that everything is aligned up. Perfect. Alrighty then. So as you can see, and I'll fast forward just a little bit, sorry about that. So for those of you who don't know what Mer-May is, or not Mer-May, it's Mer-May. So basically artists around the community, they try at least every single day from the month of May just to draw mermaids, either pin-up or in different styles and sections. So I'm not really sure when this started, but it's kind of like Inktober. I'm probably not going to be able to do this for every single day of May, but I just wanted to at least show you guys what I was working on so far yesterday, because I think we did an overall great job at it, and it really did kind of set the tone. I did Mer-May, it's kind of weird saying it, but I did Mer-May before, but this is back before I started doing digital art, and I more so did more traditional, so drawing things by hand, painting them and sketching them. And so for this one, I was able to find some of my old designs of Mer-May, and I decided, okay, maybe just redraw it in my new art style and just see kind of where things go from there. But throughout this process, I really liked it. I think that it really does speak to the new design. Currently right now, I'll be posting this finished result on my Instagram and also on my TikTok later today. And so if you guys want to check it out and see the before, you'll be able to see it from there. And then I'll also be trying to post it on my Patreon as well, and just my other social medias, Thread, and I'm trying to open up Blue Sky in as well, so you'll be able to see it there. But when you're drawing these sort of figures, especially if you want to do these nice art challenges that the art community just basically sets up for us, I highly recommend it. Overall, it does help time and time again for people, especially if they do want to evolve more as an artist, trying to commit to it. And I know it's very difficult. I know from my own experience, I was really trying to do everything step by step for each of the art challenges, just to kind of get in the dedication and practice of drawing every day. But as time goes on, it does get a bit overwhelming. However, I do still recommend people participating in it, just because overall it is relatively very good for you guys to practice. So with this, I had a lot of fun doing it, getting different types of figures and poses in, and then just kind of recreating it or redrawing it into a new style. Really helped set the tone. Really helped set the tone for some of the things that I was looking for when it came to my art. And so I really did like the overall process. And then as I looked back at my before, which is something that I thought was like, okay, I oversimplified, I decided to also change some stuff. So as you see here, during my sketch, I was trying to kind of copy the old photo, and then from there, I kind of make some tweaks and adjustments. One of the things that I do really much appreciate, especially when it comes to certain details like this or certain challenges that are set up, nowadays I don't look for them as often. I either take pictures myself or just use practice figures and poses that are available to kind of get my art down. When it came to this, I did need to use like a reference for the refractory of light once you see me start painting this, but overall I was able to kind of manage to figure some stuff out. I'm still learning how to draw waves and get all of that stuff down, and also just get into the habit and get into the practice of by figuring out a way to create my own brushes and details, so that way when I'm doing my art, it doesn't take too long or extend itself over a long period of time. Just because it is natural, especially for artists, to kind of look for shortcuts. That's why, say for example, Clip Studio Paint has all these different brushes, so that way instead of you constantly having to draw or redraw every single strand or every single piece, you can just use the brush and it'll be a lot quicker and easier process, so that way you're not overexerting yourself and spending longer and longer periods of time just trying to get the simplest of details done and out of the way. It can be very exhausting, but what I'm going to looking into Krita, because that is the drawing software that I use, I'm going to look into how do I create my own brushes, and so that way when I do end up drawing, I can literally just draw it as a brush instead of constantly drawing each individual strand all the way. And so in this video, you'll see me use different sorts of brushes and also different sorts of tools in order to kind of get the textures and the strokes that I want for each of my artwork. And hopefully, I believe that will be helpful to you guys, especially if you want to draw something similar to this. One of the things that I am learning how to do is get better at different types of overlays on top of my shadows in order for my artwork to stick out. So for example, when I ended up doing that blue underwater scene, I was able to really get down and draw in the different types of like bubbles and underwater scenery. However, I did get like a good suggestion from someone in my comment section on TikTok. They did suggest a blue overlay, and I was trying to figure out how to do that without it kind of compromising or making the art look a bit, how do I say it, like my picture's covered in blue fog. And so when I was doing that, I know that on Krita they do offer different features and different filters that can kind of help with that. However, I was a bit hesitant to use it just because previously with Krita, as I was trying to change the filter, change the default settings in order to get that overlay, it kind of glitched out on me, and what ended up happening was that everything kind of just, all the colors were wrong. So say for example, if I chose black, it would be painting in the red, or if I chose blue, it would be painting in like purple or something. Thanks so much for the follow, I appreciate it, thank you so much. Or if I chose green, it would be painting in yellow, so all the colors were just off. And so I was trying to figure out like, oh, like what happened, like how do I change this back? Even when I changed it back to the default setting, it kept painting in the wrong colors, and then eventually while I was trying to change it, I couldn't even paint in colors anymore. It was just black, white, gray, or tan. And so that is one of the troubling features that I did have for Krita. Just trying to create overlays and do different stuff with it. I looked online and they said that it was a common occurrence, and basically if all else fails, I would have to delete the app on my computer and then re-download it so that it can basically reset itself. And so with this, as you would imagine, I didn't want to really do that. So it took time, but I was able to fix it again. But now I'm just trying to learn how to create different overlays and layers without having to mess with the original settings on Krita, just because it would be an overall pain, and then I wouldn't be able to draw at all with lots of my artwork. And so what I did end up doing was just something very simple. As the video is playing, I ended up going up in the top section, and you'll see it in a minute. After occupancy, sorry, I'm having a hard time saying it, but I ended up going just up on the top and making the brush itself more faded, and then after that increase the size so I can cover the entire page. And then from there, that's how I created my blue overlay over it, so that way it could look more of a deep, not too much of a deep blue undersea, but it could look like that they're actually under the water and you'll be able to see them. It just looked a lot better. And so just having that little blue fadedness instead of having everything clear, especially if it's like an underwater deep section, it really helped bring out the overall tone of the drawing that I did. And so for this one, I basically did the same thing, and you'll see it later. I used a yellow overlay to kind of reflect the sun. I also had it layered out in the water that I did, and had some of it sparkling out coming out of the clouds. And so just learning different techniques like that is a real game changer. I'm deciding to do this instead of kind of messing with any of the original settings from the software, just because it is what it is. Technical glitches will happen, and if I can just avoid that and create something basic and simple, I can show you guys, so that way, in case if you're scared that your software might be bugged, it might just be better to do this as a substitute and then just work from there. You never know. And this can happen with any software, but this is just what I've been experiencing with Krita. So I just kind of find different techniques and methods to kind of shortcut and just go from one thing to another in order for me to get the overall end result that I want for my drawing. So yeah. So as you can see here, and I'll fast forward just a little bit, I was working on her hairline and also the shape of her face. I did kind of alter it a little bit just because the face was a bit thicker from the beginning, and so ultimately I kind of smoothed it out and curved it in order to get like the proper head shape. There we go. So now you'll see that for the layers of hair that I'm trying to do for her, I was just trying to kind of get that overall perception and vibe of when your hair is like sleeked back instead of just kind of having strands fall everywhere. I did also wanted to keep in mind that most, just more of a realistic mermaid. So I did end up giving her a little bit more scales on her body. And then of course, just made her a little bit more pale. So I wanted to really still capture the overall traditional mermaid from like the mythology and everything, but at the same time I did kind of wanted to keep my own style just to keep her pretty and everything. So she'll be a basic nice pinup, and just to kind of have her hair all slicked back because she is coming from the water. And also you have to keep in mind that she's drenched. I didn't go so much into detail of it because overall for the month of May, when I end up doing the Mer-May pinup girls, I wanted to be overall simple just because drawing them, and that's what I am going to try to do, just trying to draw them every single day. It is going to take a while, and it is what it is. I don't have like a lot of time like every day to do it, and so at most this month I might just end up doing like 10, if I'm lucky 15, and then just having something to post for the month of May. And then I'll be putting that on my Instagram and my Patreon, and then for my TikTok I'll also be posting them there. However, just because I want my TikTok to be a little bit more organized, ultimately what I'm gonna end up doing is just posting them, but they're gonna be like cute picture frames, and then my 3 OCs are gonna be like interacting with them. So I'll try to figure things out, and then you'll see from there what I mean. But yes, so as you can see, as I'm drawing here, I was still able to figure out the overall head shape. So now when I'm drawing the hair, it's still kind of loosely, and I want to make the strands stick out more before they add the color, just so that you guys know where the lines separate, and then also where the hair falls down. So that way it's, again, going to be an oversimplified design, and then using the different techniques with the shadows and the color, it'll make the art itself more dynamic. I don't know if anyone here has followed or knows who Philip Tomato is. I watch a lot of his streams, and then during that, for his streams, I kind of learned from him just simplifying it, especially when you're just drawing it out, is very helpful and important. And then when you add the color, it makes a whole lot of difference. So lots of the times artists will do things and it's really still beautiful and it's very creative. They'll overdraw, at least that's how I view it. They'll overdraw, trying to add every detail, and I understand it because I'm guilty of it as well. And I just like doing the cute little details just because I feel it really sets the tone for the art. And you know, each artist is different, but for certain things like this, what I'm gonna start doing is just simplifying the sketch, or me drawing the ink layer right here. And then after that, when I start coloring, then I'll add more of the details, add more shadows, more lighting, just more refractory, just so that way when you guys see it, you'll see the simpleness. That's the before and after. So you'll see the mistake that I didn't make in this video that I'll correct later as I start painting, because I already have brushes that basically implement all those fine details for me. This part right here, I didn't really need to draw. And so the green part that's faded, that is our sketch. I should have just kind of stuck to this, but what I ended up doing, and the reason why I ended up drawing this part right here, was because that's what I was gonna do, be detailed and draw every single individual detail, such as the rocks, each of the ocean waves, the splashes, the clouds, and the sun. And the reality is I didn't need to do that because the brushes themselves was going to do that work for me as I started painting. And so when I started painting, I was still able to see the lines underneath it. And usually you can incorporate that to kind of make your artwork more dynamic. But in this case, it didn't really end up doing that. And so let me actually hide my VTuber. Does that help? No. Okay. Sorry. So what ended up happening is that the lines, you can see them underneath the paint. And usually if it's done right, it can help your artwork look very dynamic. However, in this case that I did it, it kind of just looked like I drew over the very nice painting or the paint that I did for the character. And that was also kind of distracting, and it took away from the overall main piece, which was the mermaid. And that's not something that you would want to do when you end up drawing or creating a piece of artwork. You always want to make sure the main thing that you're drawing, all that attention is solely focused on that and not anything else or anything that's going to distract from it, just simply because you don't want it to, in a sense, take away or draw more of the attention away from it. Because if there's too many things happening all at once in the art piece, then it's very distracting and you can't really see what it is that you're doing or the overall purpose is. It's kind of like, it's different if, what's an example? Not really like a Van Gogh piece, but let me see if I can show it. I'm not sure myself what the art piece was called, but I'll search it up right now to show you guys, so that way you get what I'm saying. So if I search up famous art piece with a clock, there you go. So this artwork, and it's very well known, most people know it. It's by Salvador Dali, the surrealist masterpiece. The Persistence of Memory, 1931, showcases one of the artist's most iconic motifs, the melting clocks. So what is best picture? I guess we'll pop out this one. So for example, this one, as you see here, so as you see here, the main attention is the melting clocks, and this is what's going to overall drive your piece. And you see how there's multiple ones over here. It lets you know that this is the main one that you want the attention from. Because the main focus, just like in the title, is the melting clocks and nothing else. So imagine if he puts like men riding a donkey, or like cats everywhere, or like, for example, cracks, just something that kind of distracts away from the main piece right here. Then it starts to get confusing, and it doesn't really live up to the title or live up to the name, especially when the overall perception or the overall thing is the melting clocks. You don't want it to distract from that. So the same thing with your artwork, or the same thing with your art piece. Have your main thing that the piece is about, and you can draw little details in the background, but make sure that they complement the main center or art piece that's right here. So that way people, when they look at your art, they don't get confused. It's something that I learned just in some art classes that I've taken, And it is something that Phil kind of brings to light when you watch his streams that he's mentioned before. Whatever your piece is about, you try to focus on that and try not to like distract too much from it. And if you are going to draw other things, make sure that they're not too much of a distraction and that it's supposed to complement the overall center, which is the main character, you know? So yeah, that's one piece of advice that I would give you guys, especially if you're drawing or you're trying to get to know different art. Perfect. And so now, in this section, when I start drawing her tail, and that's just something that I also wanted to do. I just wanted to draw the complete mermaid, because that was the drawing in my original sketch. It depends, but for different types of mermaids designs, I realize not everything is the same. So you'll see, but you can even see it in the sketch as well. I gave her an overall short design for the tail. I gave her an overall short design for the tail. Just because I don't want it to be too much of like the same thing. The thick-tailed like mermaid. Sometimes being creative and just coming up with different designs is a good thing. And then I also want to make sure it still falls in line with like the classic mythology of the mermaid, but also doesn't stray from it as well. So for this one, I did end up doing a lot of cleanup as I was posting the finished result. And then of course you also have to be realistic. You can look at actual fish and how their bodies are shaped, and you can also base your mermaid designs on that as well. Just because when you pay attention to like their fins or their flippers or their scales, and you know those different types of body parts that they use to swim, you also want to keep in mind how does that fit in for a mermaid. Just because they have the top human body and the bottom fish body, you have to keep in mind what design is going to help like support that weight. But for her, I guess because I gave her a small tail, I was thinking more so of like a helicopter. So instead of her kind of swimming the up and down motion like a traditional mermaid, I don't know why, I kind of thought of her tail spinning around and around to kind of help propel herself forward as she's swimming. So yeah, just coming up with designs like that will overall help the perception, and you can create your own lore when you're doing your OC characters or your characters like that. Perfect. There you go. And so as you'll see here, it was coming soon as I started working on her tail. Instead of, for example, the scales, instead of drawing each individual scale, I'll end up using a brush, which again, I've talked about it before, is very helpful, and it saves a lot of time for artists, especially if you're just trying to do a simple design and just try to do like a simple over piece. One of the things that one of the things that I should have done by the end of this drawing, I should have cleaned up a lot more. As you can see here, it kind of looks like chicken scratch, and then lots of the lines are kind of sticking out. I used that to my advantage when I ended up giving her like the big fin in the back. However, and I understand like how much of a pain it is, I should have just drawn on a new layer, a cleaner version of it, instead of just kind of leaving it as like a rough sketchy look. But I was doing this for a long period of time, and I had to kind of come back to it. Just because I know myself, drawing for long periods of time, I then start to get a lot more detailed, and then it starts to get, a bit distracting. But for this one, I definitely should have cleaned up the lines a little bit more, just because it would have made the scales stand out, and then it would have just gave them more of a cleaner look. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit lazy, but when I was coloring, I believe I did use it to my advantage, instead of constantly having to redo and retrace and redraw everything. But yeah, for the next one, I'll try to do more of a neater job and just erase lots of the extra lines, so that way it's not too distracting and the sketch stands out. There we go. Okay, perfect. There you go. So as you can see, I just used the brush here on Krita just to make things easier, and then I decrease the occupancy in order for the scales to not be too dark and stand out too much, because we still wanted to have an overall good texture for when we start coloring. So this particular tool or brush, Krita does have available for free, and I use it for a lot of different textures and features such as this, so fish scales, snake scales, and everything. It was just a lot quicker process, and it helped out quite a bit. Okay. So as you see me start just cleaning up just a tad bit more, you'll begin to notice just kind of the different features and details that I had for this one, and how it'll come together coming closer to the end. There we go. And then now you're gonna be seeing me zoom in and out a lot just so I can get kind of everything down as I try to separate the artwork from each other. Let's see. Alright, and then of course, as you can see, I did the same thing for the scales on each side. One thing that I should have done was given her thicker gills. I kind of just made it faded a little bit so they really stand out more. But there we go. Okay, perfect. So one thing that I definitely should have done, but again, I'm trying to simplify it, but I should have brought it out a lot more when I was coloring. I should have been more detailed just in her bra, and then also more detailed in her gills area, just to kind of still make her look like she looks like a mermaid, but I still wanted her to look more of like a thicker mythological mermaid. I skipped out on it with her ears. I kind of just hid her ears behind her hair just because I didn't want to do too much with her design. But I think on the next one I'll kind of push it a bit further just to still get that traditional mermaid look into it, and just try to oversimplify it as much as I can, so that way during the rest of the time I could just spend it coloring. Still very much liked how this one came, or how I finished this one, but I do want to practice a bit more on the fluidity and the smoothness of my design. And then I'm also going to practice a lot more underwater scenes, just drawing the bubbles, drawing the water ripples and everything. And then from there it'll also help give you show examples to give you guys practice on drawing some underwater scenes, especially if you guys want to learn. And then we can move on to like different climates and different environments as we draw. There we go. And then if I don't end up drawing mermaids the entire month of May, I'll probably do some nice underwater scenes that I did before. I believe I showed it in a previous stream and in a previous video. And I can also show the artwork now since I have it open. But for example, this piece right here, this is a nice underwater scene, the one that I was talking about before. This is before the blue overlay on it. So I'll try to practice a little bit more of these scenes as I'm drawing for the month of May, so that way it can still be on par and on themed once we start getting into it. And then just having that practice done, or just having that practice down and knowing what to do, is very helpful and useful, especially when you do end up having to create these scenes from memory or having to create these streams by hand. So yeah, very cool, very important. And it just kind of gives it a nice practice when it comes into it. So basically what I'm doing right here, I'm drawing like two people up here. They're on top of the rocks kind of looking down, and they see the mermaid. So this kind of goes back to what I had said previously. If you do decide to draw any like background characters or anything in the background, you want to make sure that it's complementing the main piece. So for them, even though I kind of lined them out, you'll see later in the video that I also kind of faded them a little bit, just to kind of make it clear that they're not the main focus of this piece. The actual mermaid is. And because of that, it helped her stand out a lot more for the artwork, and they weren't too much of a distraction, which is really good. So now, perfect. So currently what I'm doing right now, while you guys are kind of seeing the video, I am going ahead and just kind of showing these things on my other social media. So right now, if you look on my Instagram or my thread, you'll be able to see this piece, and I'll be posting this later today on TikTok and also later on my Patreon as well. There we go. So now when I ended up doing the details on her face, again, I tried to capture the same facial features as the original, but I did want it to tweak a little bit because as I went back, because I did end up drawing in pencil, but as I went back, I did kind of notice the rough edges and the rough sketches of it. And so I kind of made her face a lot more smoother than before. Keep in mind, especially if you want to go for something like kind of more realistic, one of the things that I should have done was make her a little bit more pruny, but not too pruny. Her skin was glowing a lot, which is something that I really liked, but I should have given her more of like a drenched, tired look. Or maybe not too tired, but just more of like a nice... What's the best way to describe it? Not fishy because she's a mermaid, but more so a nice, I guess paler. I should have made her more paler. So that way, again, if you're underwater all the time, your body's going to be pruny. And so I think it might have been like the actual Little Mermaid effect with Ariel. She's in the water all day, and because it is Disney, they basically made her something close to perfect. So even though she was a redhead, she didn't have freckles, which to me didn't make any sense. I'm not saying all redheads have freckles, but a good majority of them do. And so they kind of made her like, oh, flawless skin features, when I should have done in my piece is just make her a little bit more paler, a little bit more scalier, and just really emphasize the different details of it. I didn't need to necessarily draw everything strand by strand, or draw every little detail like in between, like on her body. But while I was coloring, that is one of the things that I am going to learn to do. Just really get in there and scale in and just kind of learn how to color in detail instead of drawing in detail. And usually what I mean by that is having the outline done. The outline such as this is drawn out, but then once I start painting, it's the same thing with traditional painting. Once you start painting, you then get in and start like really painting in different details with using shadows, different lightings, and just use the brushes to really scale in the texture of the artwork itself. So that way, it's still a process, but it does help save time a little bit when you kind of get each of the features in there and detailed in. And it really does bring your artwork to life and really scales in the piece once you get started. So yes, I think for this was a good first attempt, especially kind of just redrawing this in my style. But for the next one, I'll try to be a little bit more, just a little bit more in depth with what it is that I'm trying to kind of, get into the zone with, if that makes sense. Which it doesn't, but I think you guys overall know what I'm trying to say. Yes. The old saying, less is more, is very important, and it really does help bring a lot of your artwork together, especially when you're trying to create the tone for your piece such as this. So then as you then begin to notice, and it is something that I noticed as well as I was drawing, and again, I will just say this experience, or just getting these techniques down, this is something that you don't learn, especially when you use AI art. Lots of AI art just ends up copying from the actual artists themselves. And I think I posted it before, but AI art is more so basically about, you can look at it as ordering the pizza. You didn't make the pizza yourself, you just ordered it, and then you just kind of claim that you made the pizza. It's not the same thing. When you actually sit and draw art yourselves, then you can say, oh, I made this piece of art, instead of just kind of writing it out and then giving a prompt and then just having the computer generate it yourself. I'm not really gonna say it's fine, just because, okay, if it's like for a project or for something else, cool, you decided to do this in order to just kind of get an overall viewpoint or a shortcut for what you want. But if you really want something, or if you really want to learn how to draw, if you're trying to become an actual artist, it's good to kind of understand and learn how to do these techniques yourselves, instead of kind of just having a computer generate it itself. I've seen AI art, I've seen how it's used. However, I'm not gonna lie, if, say for example, someone used the AI to draw their art and their art piece looked like mine, and it's basically mine because the computer copied it and just altered it a little bit, then that's not okay. That's why lots of artists in the community don't really go for AI art, or they don't support it, just because the hard work that we put into, especially when we learn about this stuff and it's our passion, it's basically being hijacked by a computer, which is kind of messed up. So I just kind of wanted to put that there, or mention that briefly. I know that there's a whole art war, especially when it comes to AI and traditional or just regular artists. And I just kind of wanted to implement my own piece on that. But as I was drawing this, that was something that I kind of thought of very briefly. It would kind of suck, especially when I put in a lot of details into this art, only for it to kind of be hijacked by something else. Because as you can see, this did take me some time, and the overall end result I was really proud of, because this is something that I drew myself, and it's something that I am proud of, and will continue to kind of progress further as I start getting more and more detailed and into my art. Because drawing this wasn't easy. It did very much take up a lot of time. But each time of it was worth it, don't get me wrong. Perfect. Alright. So now that you guys kind of see that I have the overall sketch and lines down, I'm actually gonna fast forward just a little bit. Oh yay, we're basically halfway through this video. There we go. Gonna fast forward. Oh yeah, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit more, but as you can see here, in my original sketch, or in my original Mer-May of this piece, I had her tail kind of holding or squeezing a bubble underwater. And then as I was kind of in the process of doing that, I kind of just decided to delete that layer, just because that's nice and it's cute, but because I was also trying to kind of get the water down, and then I would have to make the water see through and everything. So as time kind of progressed on, I changed the overall tone and dynamic of the original drawing, just to kind of set the tone. Okay, she's laying on the rock and she's just trying to rest from swimming, and so her holding a bubble underwater, which at the time I thought was very cool when I originally did it, I just decided to cut it, just because it was kind of doing too much for the artwork. So I oversimplified it, got rid of it, and then just continued to do more details on her, the rock, and then also the water as well. As I go faster, I just made her dark skin, because she is a dark skinned mermaid. I simplified her fin, didn't really do too much details into that, didn't really need to. It's just that she uses that to swim, and she also uses that to kind of guide her direction while she's in the water. Perfect. So now, oh yeah, and then this was something that I was also trying to do, and this was another one of my mistakes. I tried to do her scales on the ink layer, on the sketch layer, when I should have just focused more on it while I was painting it on the paint layer. Just because now, as you can see, it kind of just looks like she has a tattoo, or she has like markings on her arm, which was not the look I was trying to go for. I'm trying to make them be more scaly, and so ultimately I just decided to scrap the idea on the ink and focus more on the paint layer as I was doing the sketch. There you go. So again, just so it can look a lot more natural, I use the scales brush, decrease the occupancy, painted very lightly on her arms and also on her side, because again, once we start painting, then that's when everything will start to stick out. Okay, there we go. So now in just a moment you'll begin to see it when I started painting. Perfect. So now as I kind of added a new layer onto here, when you're painting, or say for example if you're just trying to get a nice tone for the background, it's very simple. You're going to use the gradient tool, and I did the same thing for the sky and then also the water above. So for the water, there you go, I made it a darker color, and then for the sky I made it a more lighter blue color. It looks overall the same, but it is darker down here and it is a lighter blue up here. In the middle I kind of wanted to make it white just to kind of show more of that gradient layer, but then once again, once I started painting it, I just decided to use a different tool for the brushes. Sorry, a different brush for the clouds, so that way you guys are able to see it as I'm doing it. And then of course I use another brush, and I'll fast forward it just a little bit because I messed up. I used another brush for the rocks or the mountains, the cliffs, sorry. The brush, I created the clouds in the sky. And you'll see it in this video and in the next video that I'll play for you guys. When you're painting clouds or you're drawing clouds, you have to keep in mind that you're also kind of not always using the same color, because if it's just white, nothing really sticks out or stands out. You're going to use the same brush or the same tool, and then darker colors, so you're going to use shadowy colors to kind of have white as the background, have the dark color in the front of that, add in a new white layer, and then just go back and forth from there. Because you also have to keep in mind clouds also cast shadows on top of each other, and then that's kind of what gives you more of the dynamic looks for that. And then just like how I said before, on Krita there's also a brush for this, for rocks, or it gives it a nice like rocky texture. That's kind of the brush that I use all the time anytime that I'm drawing rocks and layering those things out. I use it to kind of brush in and stroke in the textures for it. So as you can see here, this made it very simple. I'm just kind of brushing in the rocks, and I also changed it using different colors in order to show like, okay, cool. And that's very important because once you start adding the light, it will make a key difference from when you start painting and the light's just kind of just shining on top of it. So as you see, or if you can see right here, the lines that I drew for the rocks, I tried my hardest to kind of follow it, so that way it doesn't look too all over the place. But because it was more so out of place and out of touch, what I ended up doing is just kind of erasing it, because it kind of, if you kind of were to look at it, it did distract. And it was kind of just like, oh, someone drew on top of it, and that distracted from the overall piece in the middle. So now what I'm doing is I'm resizing it. This is a different layer of rock. When you're painting or when you're using different things like this, you need to get into the habit of creating layers on top of layers before you just draw everything on the same layer. So because I put the rocks, the different colors of rocks on different layers, it then brought more to my art piece, because then it looks like, okay, cool, you can actually see it. So as you can see right here, this layer of rock, it does look like that it's on top of this one, and then this looks like that it's directly behind it, instead of it just being all on the same layer. And then the rocks themselves are just kind of on top of each other, but in a bad way. So doing this, it helps me, I guess for a better description, it helped me draw backwards, which is good. So that way you guys are able to see it, and when you look at the actual art piece as well, it's like, okay, it fits a lot more, instead of it just kind of looks like that I drew everywhere. By the end of it, when I was done, I was able to paint over this and still follow the guidelines that I drew for myself in order for the art to look good. So it's very, very helpful. Perfect. So now I'm going to fast forward one more time. There we go. So like I said before, when I was painting my character, I set the overall tone. So usually I would have made her darker, but I decided to go for a more paler color for her skin, just because, again, she's a mermaid, she's swimming all the time, so she's going to be pruny. And I'll try to do it next time, but I should have given her more light to reflect from on her scales, and I should have been even more detailed as she was laying on the rock, just for her overall skin. I did a better job at that with her actual tail itself, but for her skin, while I was trying to make it shine, I also wanted to make sure that it wasn't too flat. And then another key difference I'll probably do next time, and it is a suggestion for you guys as you're drawing your art. Just keep in mind there's different reflections of light that are coming off of your character, and you need to, it's coming from like all around her. So for example, the main light source, which you'll see later in the video, it's not just coming from the sky, aka the sun or the clouds. There's also light that's going to come from the ocean, which is the natural light, and the light that's going to come from these rocks, which is also, a natural light as well. So I should have used like a nice airbrush tool to kind of brush in very lightly those light sources, just kind of coming from all around her, and then that would have brought the piece together a lot more, especially since I added a bunch of shadows onto her. There you go. So I am gonna fast forward just a little bit, just because I'm drawing mostly the base color for her. There you go. I'll actually slow down right here. And then as you just saw, again, just whatever brushes and tools, because Krita has quite a few, whatever brushes and tools that are already available for you, just go ahead and use and be creative. Challenge yourself to be more creative, especially when you're painting, and just see how you can manipulate that to your advantage, instead of trying to individually draw each stroke of the brush, which nowadays is a little bit more unnecessary. I'm gonna try to figure out how to create a brush in Krita, and then add it to my inventory, so that way I won't have to constantly redo everything as I'm drawing. Clip Studio Paint has it, I believe Procreate has it, so I kind of want to just do it for myself as I'm drawing. But yes, these little crashes of light are just the waves coming from the water, just because as she is swimming, there are waves kind of pushing towards the rocks in the ocean, and you'll be able to see that a lot more as the video goes on. There you go. And then I'll fast forward a little bit. So as you're trying to draw the waves into the water, just always start with a nice faded layer, and then it is what it is. Take your time. Take your time, especially when you're drawing in details like that, just so it's clear, okay, you're in the ocean. These are waves, and they're crashing into the rocks as she's laying in them. And I think for the next mermaid, I'll try to add some water droplets onto her body, and then some water droplets onto her face, just so that it's a little bit more detailed. Yes. So for this, same thing. White's going to be the main tool, just to kind of fade in the water, get in the waves, and just kind of give it an overall appearance. Next time what I'll do is make sure that I am fading it in one direction, so that way it's clear where the direction of the water is coming from, and also where the direction of the water is going. Because if you don't have a clear direction, it then starts to become confusing, and then the water begins to look unnatural, and that's not something that you would want for when you're painting or when you're drawing your piece. There you go. So this video is actually almost done. Oh, sorry. I kind of jumped it down a little bit, but I'll let you guys see. So another nice little cute shortcut. If you take your selection layer, just do some squiggly lines like how I did right here, which again, very helpful. There you go. I hope you guys can see. do your squiggly lines like how you guys do here. And then if you go all the way to the top for Krita and go to where it says filter, you click blur, and then it's going to show you, I think it's called gestation blur. You can fading. One of the things I learned is using the blur filter really helps a lot to create a nice little visual effect for your artwork as you're moving on. So as you can see, instead of constantly kind of drawing the smog or drawing the lines, I just kind of use the gestation blur to kind of get that in. I needed that nice thick white layer in order to kind of get the waves and also get the current that I want to. And then it's also going to help a lot when I create the reflection of light when I'm doing my sun. So yeah, just kind of manipulating the tools that you have available on Krita or whatever software that you guys are going to end up using. Very helpful, and it's going to help a lot, especially when you're trying to set the tone for your artwork. Alrighty, and exit out. This is the final result. So let me go ahead and pull up the video, so that way you guys can see as to how we got to here. So now let's expand. And play. Here we go. There we go. Okay, now in the second video, and let me make sure that everything's synced and aligned right on YouTube. Okay, perfect. Now in the second video, as it's playing, I'll go ahead and fast forward a little bit. As I was painting, you then begin to see me trying to blend in the waves a bit more. And then later you'll see me on top of another layer, kind of adding more of the white detailed onto it as time goes on. When you're doing this, it's very good to blend in your layers, so that way it does kind of give it more of that look. This one, I wanted the waves to kind of gather in like one direction, so that way when I end up painting them crashing onto the rocks, it looks a lot more natural. So I had to keep in mind, even though I drew her flat, she is swimming and she kind of resurfaced. Now when she resurfaces, the water is going to be splashing upward around her tail, her body, and then the rocks. And then you also have that incoming water for when she's on the side here, for when she has to swim up to the rocks. So when you're painting or when you're drawing, direction is very key and it's very important. See right here, I added the additional blue overlay just to kind of let you guys know that half of her body, which is mostly her tail, is underwater. The rest of the half, she's not underwater. Like, just to distinguish, this is the surface layer, and then this is the ocean layer, the bottom layer. And I also still didn't want that to distract too much from it covering the rocks. So now it looks more so like the water is surrounding the rocks, which is a good thing, instead of it either being right underneath it or it being on top of it. So I did this using the select tool and then also creating an extra blue overlay around it. So that way it looks like her tail is underwater And then there are rocks that are also underwater instead of the rocks just floating up to the surface, which doesn't make sense. So later in the video, you'll see this, and then I will fast forward just a tiny bit. There you go. I start adding this fog or the smoky layer, just because if you are near the marina or the Marina Bay area, or just around like an ocean, because of the temperatures, it does create fog. And so when you have that in mind, and there's a fog, it comes from the water, it also comes from like the body. That fog is going to be covering areas like the rock and then the top surface of the water as it's rolling in. Because usually, and it also depends on the weather, usually it's foggy by the ocean. And then because if we are sticking to the original myth, more than one times you're not gonna really, and of course we're talking about mythology, but more than one times you're not gonna see a mermaid I guess in broad daylight, because that wouldn't make any sense. I don't believe they would want themselves to appear. Again, we're talking about mythology. I don't know anyone here or if anyone's actually seen a real mermaid. If you have, that sounds awesome. What did it look like? X, Y, and Z. But I just kind of wanted to, in the classic mythologies, they're usually you see them like during foggy weather, because it's not as clear and they can someone hide underneath the fog as they're swimming or as they're popping their heads up. It's the same thing with the Loch Ness Monster, and it's the same thing with other mythological just marine creatures. You're not going to see them in broad daylight. Usually you're going to see them during a fog or during something else. So for this part, like I said, I was trying to draw the bubble, her tail holding the bubble underwater, and I think I'll just skip this part just because I did end up scrapping this part. At the time, it just didn't make sense, and I would have had to make her tail a lot more visible. But as I was drawing it, I just realized I did not want that. If anything, the top part of her tail could have been visible, but the bottom part I was just trying to hide underwater. Just to kind of keep to the theme that she just came up just to take a break from swimming, and she's more so trying to relax on the surface instead of, I guess, plopping up her entire body there, because that wouldn't make any sense. She's just trying to take a break from swimming. And then again, I'll fast forward. So here I used two different types of colors for the sun, a thicker yellow and a more lighter yellow. And then you'll see right here, as I was drawing in the clouds, I used a white color just for the basic background for the clouds, and then I used a darker blue color or turquoise color for the clouds just to be on top of it to help cast that shadow for both the clouds, and then also make it show that it's going on top of the sun, so that way when we end up drawing the light rays, you will see like, oh, the sun is peering out from the clouds and it's shining down to the ocean. That's going to hit the mermaid and give it more of that shine that we want it to give. So I basically did this just on repeat. I began to use also different colors of blue as well to kind of showcase that. But learning how to do this is very simple. Mine is just the oversimplified version. It's just use multiple colors on top of another, on top of another. Like white is the base color for the clouds, and then depending on what color scheme that you want to go for your painting, just use that. You put that on top of white, and then the white on top of that, and then that on top of the white, and just basically repeat the same thing over and over again. So here I use a nice light blue color, just again to get those different types of colors and different types of blues in there. And I just did that to kind of paint on top of each other. What I'm gonna do for next time is just try to use a different color blue, because even though this is like a little bit more different than the ocean itself, it was still kind of too close on the color selector, just too close to each other just in terms of pigment. And I guess for it to have stood out a lot more, maybe just even stayed with white or just a way lighter color of blue, just to kind of show that it's probably still early in the day, but it's foggy, and then the sun is going to be shining soon. Alright, so I'm gonna fast forward just a little bit. Okay, cool. So then, let me see if you guys can see what brush I use. Okay, so then using the airbrush tool, I used that. Basically, I took the lighter color from the sun and I brushed it a little bit lightly on top of the surface of the clouds that's touching the sun, just to signify this is where the ray of sunshine is going to be coming out of. And then because the sun is the sun, it's not just, you know, a single pigment. I drew some of it coming out of the cloud, was kind of in the way, and it just felt that someone had drew on top of the painting, which was not the look that I was trying to go for. There we go. Cool. So now for this, I just added the blush on top of my mermaid. This kind of helped make her a little bit more paler while also showing that option would be cold-blooded, to be honest with you. And that's actually a good question, because if you really were to think about it, because they're swimming in the ocean, like fish and lizards, they're cold-blooded. Yeah, because they're down in the ocean all the time. They're cold-blooded. So then wouldn't the mermaid herself be cold-blooded as well? That would kind of just make a lot more sense. Actually, I'm gonna look that up. Are mermaids cold-blooded? Okay, there you go. So just a brief distraction. Mermaids can breathe both water and air. They are cold-blooded creatures with skin as cold as that of fish. Okay, so like I said before, with her skin, should have made her more paler. Even on land, they are fast and skilled swimmers and can speak different aquatic languages such as dolphin. Mermaids are so extremely strong, capable of ripping off a human's legs with ease. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so just like when I did right there, I kind of just fact checked. And it's good to do these things when you end up drawing, because that goes a lot more to when you're doing your art. So just off of that piece right there, mermaids are cold-blooded, so then when you're trying to get into detail the texture of their skin and also the texture of their bodies, it's really so more pale. Like, still give them a pigment, but they're going to be pale, scaly, drenched, like wet, and then also probably a little bit more of a tired look. So say for example, and again, this is why Disney has one of the most beautiful pieces of art, but like I said before, Ariel from The Little Mermaid, the fact that her skin was so perfect didn't make any sense because she's always pruny all the time. But for, I guess, this mermaid and others, you have to kind of keep in mind those key features and distinctions. She can still be beautiful and pale. And then I guess with that, it would have been better if I would have tried not to use too many warm colors when I'm drawing the mermaids themselves, just because then it would give off the appearance that she's warm-blooded, and that's just not true. Since mermaids are cold-blooded, you would use paler colors. You would use like not too many darker colors, but nice lighter colors. So for this one, it's more of like a nice burgundy color, but it's just more faded out. That was a better choice for her, just because, again, we don't want her to look too warm because she's always in cold water all the time, and it's salt water at that. And so if you're constantly in cold salt water all the time, everything's gonna get pruny and everything's gonna like not fizzle out, but it's gonna like wrinkle itself out, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm probably gonna do more research into a mermaids, just to kind of get more of those key features down and be more distinguished when I end up painting them again. So this one, I ended up doing the shadows, and so of course I just casted miniature shadows on her. So she's gonna have a shadow on her fin, around her arm and her armpit, and of course underneath her chin, just because it is casting a shadow, since the majority of the light source is going to be on her back. And so the main shadow is she's not gonna have too much light on her face. So that's why she has shadows here and in between, because the rocks themselves are also casting a shadow onto her, and they're covering her from the sun. So then when I begin to add those extra layers of light later on throughout the painting, you'll begin to see that the rocks are helping her casting a shadow. She's casting a shadow onto herself because she's facing away from the sun, and the main areas that the sun is going to end up shining onto her are her back, on top of her hair, on top of her shoulders, and a little bit on her fingers and arms, because the light source is coming through her hair, and then also on top of her tail in the back. So here I'm drawing in her eye color. I'm also giving her scales, just a light brush color. And I'll fast forward through that process because that did take me a while. As you can see here, I'm adding the shining of light. This is just the first layer of light and where it's going to hit. Because once again, outside of the sun itself, you're going to have those reflections of light hit certain areas and parts of your body. So I just kind of blurred it out just to kind of give it that nice effect. There's also going to be some areas on her cheek, and I probably should have put her nose as well. But even in the shadows, those areas are gonna glow or shine, because again, it's not just the light that's casting that extra, it's not just the sun that's going to be casting that extra layer of light. It's also going to be the water and the rocks itself, especially since the light from the water has its own natural light, and on top of which it also has the light of the sun, and both of those light sources are going to be bouncing off of the rock that'll also be bouncing off of her as well. So when you begin to study art and you get more into detail with that, you learn these other natural sources of light that you also can bring into effect when you're doing your drawings. That's why in some drawings from artists that you see, there's that undertone or those little splotches of the other colors of the environment that's around your artwork, and they begin to shine through. So that's what I did here. The first layer of light, I just decided to keep white. I added in like the edge part of her body, such as her arms, her hair, her tail. That's just going to be the first source of light that's going to come. And that's going to come more so from the natural lighting from the rocks and the ocean instead of more so from the sun. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit so you guys can see. And this is just something that I wanted to add. I added more of the key details for the scales. And of course, the natural light shine onto the scales from the water onto her tail. There you go. And then here I added more of the shadows and the details on her tail. And I erased the bottom part so that way she looks more so underwater. And if you want to see the full video of me drawing this mermaid in more detail, you can always check out my Twitch. The video is going to be there for at least a week, both part 1 and part 2. And you can see just the full scale of me drawing her on my Twitch as time goes by. Perfect. And I think another thing that I'll do on stream, I believe Phil is doing another Do This in Your Style challenge. He's doing one for Mer-May. And I believe that I'll also try to do it as well, just to kind of show you guys what I mean when I say that he knows how to like simplify a sketch and then let it shine and bring it more into detail when he's painting. Cool. So let me see if he posted it already. Okay, no, not yet. Alrighty. I added more splash layers splashes in front of her, on her tail, the ocean, and behind her. Because again, there's waves that are coming from behind her that's also going to be crashing into her and the rocks as she's resurfacing on top. Oops, there you go. Of light onto casting a reflection of herself onto the ocean, and because the light is going to be shining down on her. So when I did that, just fast forward, I erased the lines that were unnecessary, like the extra on her tail, and then after that I moved it to line it up with each other, and then using the same filter layer for the blur, I blurred it out so that way it's a lot more blended as she's swimming. Then not only is she casting a shadow, she's also casting a reflection, even if, for example, the light is dim, onto the water itself is a clear surface, so just like a mirror, it's going when you end up drawing or painting. And like I said before, just like the two people up here, it's also going to help. And then of course I kind of just spread out the blur a little bit, making the I was a little bit more back and forth, but I added more of the effects onto the water, and I made sure that I shine it onto her and onto her scales. Oops, I jumped the gun. And then this is the yellow overlay that I had mentioned before that I added on. I erased the unnecessary areas of that overlay onto, so that way we can start implementing our shadows. Alrighty, I'm going to let this video play out a little bit more. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go use the bathroom real quick and then I'll be back. But I'll let the video play out a little bit more. see where I am throughout this entire video. Okay, so right now I'm just finishing up the nice overlay of light from the sun. So as the video was playing, you guys got the overall vibe, and then now here I am adding that extra layer of shadow. Excuse me, sorry. Now here I am adding that extra layer of shadow just to kind of give more in depth with what I was talking about. And just like how I did with the layer of with the yellow layer that I added onto the artwork, I'm going to erase, like how I'm doing right now, some of the layers of shadow, so that way the sun and the layer and that blue, sorry, I can't talk. So I'm erasing the shadow layers so that the yellow layers can stand out, and that it actually looks like a shadow is being casted, and that reflection of light can shine forward onto the mermaid, so that way you guys can see. Okay, there you go. I don't know why that was so hard to say, but I'll go more into detail. There you go. I started erasing here, and then this also kind of emphasizes the shadows onto her scales. I started erasing down here in the details, and then also I erased onto so anywhere that the layers of yellow were, I also erased that shadow on top of it, so that way the yellow layer can stand out. As I was moving forward painting the background and also painting on top of the mermaid. There you go. Sorry, it's almost been 2 hours and I've been trying to talk non-stop, but as you can see here, you guys get the overall gist and the understanding of it, and I'm very glad. But it is good just to kind of show you guys step by step lots of the things that I do when I end up painting, and then just going more into details with this layer. So as I'm erasing and showcasing this, I'll also show you guys one more example of what I mean when I was painting in shadows on top of each other. So for those of you who follow my TikTok or my Instagram, I did the same thing with this one. The same processes for the sky, the grass, and also my characters. Just adding both that extra layer of shadow and that extra layer of light overlay on top of it to make sure that the picture stood out, and it was able to add more texture and details onto it. Now, because I remembered that the rocks themselves are also casting a shadow, I just copy and pasted it on the bottom, flipped it and expanded it, so that way you can see that extra layer of shadow in the water. And then using the blend tool, I blended that out and also kind of manipulated it and just made an even one on top of each other, so that way you guys can see it. Another thing I should have done was added a little bit more shadows onto the mermaid as well. Not too much, but just enough that it touches the surface area of the water. And just faded it just a little bit, so that way it would have complemented the reflection of herself into the water as the light is shining down. So as you see, this really helped the overall piece stand out. Fast forward a little bit more. I added more waves on top of it just so that it does help create more of that natural light. Remember, even though it's in the shadow area, there is going to be not too much, but just a little bit of a brightness in the water, so that way it can show even when we're doing the reflection of light there as well. There you go. So as you see the brighter tone on top of the darker tone, and how much the sun is genuinely shining on top of her, and how much more of the areas of light are coming from behind her instead of in front of her, because this is where the direction of the sun is, and then this is where she is as well. I also kind of erased more of the shadows on top of here because I also kept these two in mind. The sun, there's going to be just a little bit of a line of shadow here just because the sun is, this is a whole nother cliff, so the sun is going to be shining more so on this back layer of cliff, and it's only just going to be shining on certain parts but not everything. So just, this is just like if you've seen a cliff, or if you've seen like at the bottom of it where the rocks are in the ocean, this is just the bottom layers of rock, and basically they can either climb down to her, it's going to be a distance away, but they can climb down to her, or from the rocks you can climb up to them. So if you think about it that way, that's how you can kind of analyze everything as a whole. Alright, so far so good. This is looking well. And then here, using another brush tool, I added some a star brush and expanded it. Not too much, but just to kind of give you that extra glare. What I'll do next time is trying to practice out a rainbow glare. So just like how you see these little circles right here, they're the, if you look into the sunlight, or you can just look at a picture as well, they're going to be those little bubbles of light that you usually see reflecting off of surfaces. What I'll try to do next time is still have these same bubbles, but I'll also try to create a rainbow effect, because when you look at it, a light source is not just one color, or white isn't a color, but it's not just stereotypically white. It's going to be fast forward just a little bit. This section, I was trying to create those little ripples, or what are they called actually? Those little ocean surfaces, the surface of the water, but it didn't really turn out like I hoped, even when I ended up blurring it and fading it. So just because I didn't want to waste it, because for some reason I still thought that it looked cool, but it just didn't match for what we were doing. I thought, oh, I can probably still use them for waves, but again, they're just a little bit too thick no matter how many times I try to blur it. So ultimately, I just kind of, how do I say this? Alright, they still looked very pretty as face, but they just weren't the right texture. But ultimately what I ended up doing was kind of selecting a piece and putting it into the background. And I used some of it for seagulls, and then the rest of it, I just ended up erasing. I was trying my hardest to see what I can do with it, but ultimately, it wasn't the look that I was trying to go for overall, which made me sad, but it's okay. They still make good seagulls.
I think we are almost there. Yes. We're basically almost pretty much done here. Oh, and then of course I added my signature. I just kind of altered it to kind of match where it was going. The extra layers of shadows and waters, and then I just added more rocks onto the surface. And then an extra signature floating on top of the water. There you go. Now for this one, like I said before, I didn't put too much detail into this one. I kind of blurred them out and made them a little bit more faded because they're not the overall intention of the artwork. They're just trying to complement the mermaid. But these are the two characters that I added. Just trying to look over the cliffs. They're not sure if they see a mermaid, but they're just like, oh, what's that? Like it looks like a person, but they're not sure. But yeah. Overall, I hope that this video was very helpful to whoever is going to view it, or to those of you guys who stuck with me for this long. I appreciate it so much. I hope that this was helpful in the tips and guides, kind of the step-by-step process that I usually use anytime I end up painting or drawing something. So I hope this was helpful to you guys, and I hope that this gave you a nice clear insight on lots of the things that I do when I end up painting my pieces. And like I said before, just trying to use whatever brushes and tools that are available on Krita are very helpful. And then it's just good to be creative and use them in any sorts of ways that you can think of that you probably haven't thought of before. And when you're drawing, that's also very helpful, and it helps you get a lot out of your comfort zone, so that way you can get into those good habits to kind of help your artwork evolve a lot more. So yeah, so I just want to say thank you guys so much for sticking around for so long. If you haven't already, please check out my other social media link in my description. And then of course I stream on both TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, Picarto, and other social media platforms I'm also currently expanding on. You can go ahead and see the finished results of this right now on my Instagram, and I'll be posting this later today on my TikTok. And then of course, if you haven't already, check out my Patreon and my Kofi. If you just want to be the first ones to see the daily updates on what I'm working on, or if you feel like donating to my channel, very much appreciated and helpful. But regardless, I appreciate you guys so much for just keeping me company while I draw. But yes, I'll go ahead and let the rest of this play out, and then I'll end the stream. This video will be up on YouTube and another week for Twitch, so if you want to check it out in its entirety, you can go ahead and see it from there. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and I hope that everyone has a great and wonderful day. Bye! Happy Mer-May, and then also just in advance, Happy Mother's Day. We'll try to see if we can do a stream for that as well, while also trying to continue for the month of May, the Mer-May, or the mermaid challenges, if I should say. But yeah, alrighty you guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll see you guys next time.